Good evening and welcome to MCFC 9320 PUBcast. And as well as a normal crew tonight, we've got, and I never use this term, by the way, very, very lightly, the word legend. But on this occasion, we've got Mr. Andy Morrison. Happy birthday, sir. And thank you for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, good. I'm looking forward to having a good chat.
Yeah. I think last time I saw you, we just scraped to win the back end of last season. And it wasn't a great performance, and you was passing the car park. I think that was the last time I saw you. Let's kick. We've got thanks for everybody in the chat as well. We've got plenty of people in here. Everybody. Too many to mention in there. Yeah. So let's start off from pretty much the beginning, Andy. You joined us from Huddersfield in the 98-99 season. So. Is it 80,
that's right.
80 grand one?
I know we lost it. I got your 98-99 season. Obviously at Huddersfield. Was a captain there and doing well. I think we were second in the league in the championship, and opportunity came across to go to City. Had a bit of a fallout with the manager, which worked in my favour. It doesn't always, but it did on this occasion.
Yeah, it's for 80 grand. I'm a believer in things happen for a reason, and I'm sure everybody will agree. When you joined us, it was just exactly what we needed. Somebody to pull us up by the laces and drag us through to that, to the famous playoff final.
Yeah, listen. I've always enjoyed being in the company of the fans from that period, and they always have different ways of looking at it or what impact I had, and I felt myself I was part of maybe a puzzle that was being put together, and I was a part, and that's all it was. And that's not me being humble, because I know how good the players were, I know how good the management were, obviously the fan base, the size of the club, everything was in place, but perhaps there was a little thing missing, and and I'm not naive to know that if they'd had £1 million in the bank, I'm sure they would have gone out and bought another centre half. They would have got somebody other than me, but it's quite strange sometimes how these things happen, and it fell into place at the right time, and what was needed in that league, I guess I had the qualities that were needed on a cold night away in Colchester.
Speaking of Colchester, you scored in that game, didn't you? But you're being modest there, because for me, it doesn't matter how much a player costs. If that player fits into the system, like you said, something we needed at the time. But you're being modest there, because you was actually a decent footballer. You wasn't like me and Paddy was talking earlier before we came on the show, and you had a reputation as sort of like a bad boy, hard man, but you mixed it up with good football as well. So I understand you being modest there, but give yourself a bit of credit.
No, I do. Listen, if you want me to start talking about how good I was at football, I can spend the whole show, because I know, and again, that's not ego. I knew I could play. You can't get to the Premier League at 22 and play for Blackburn. You can't get back to the Premier League with City and play all the games unless you can play football. And I played majority of my games at the Championship, a few games in the Premier League, but so I know I could play. I know I could hold my own in that. But the stereotype is that person who would head and kick anything to win a game of football, and that's fine. The cap fits. I'm quite happy with that. But I was always aware, and still am to this day, that I could do things with a football, with a ball at my feet, a range of passing, and I was comfy in possession. But it doesn't always stand out when you're built like a rugby player.
No, but for the people who mattered, City fans and stuff like that, mate. It's we knew your value. We could see what a great footballer he was, what a leader. Because it wasn't long after you joined us that and again you scored against Colchester. I think you got man of the match as well, didn't you? So you started off up and running it, if you like. So and you quickly became captain. when you joined the club, without being naming names, obviously, did you see that there was a sort of like a lack of leaders, or maybe you could see why we were so far down, and
I wouldn't.
more a
Yeah,
little bit.
I wouldn't. There was certainly not a lack of leaders. With Richard Edgill, Kevin Horlock, Gotra, Dickoff. There's people that were individually, were strong characters, but I think a captain of a football club is a different role. It's certain qualities I think that you possess, and I know. And Jamie Pollock was the captain when I came in, and but Jamie had a tough time. He had a few injuries, and and he lacked a bit of fitness, and he wasn't necessarily. He's not guaranteed to start in a game to be the captain. So the opportunity came for me. And for me, it seemed a natural process because everywhere I'd been, I was a captain. When I went to Blackpool, Sam Allardyce made me the captain, and then I went to Huddersfield. Brian Horton made me the captain straight away. And I think sometimes it might be that as a manager, I've managed myself, that you look at the strengths of a character and they're so overpowering, perhaps, in the way they are, that you might limit them a little bit if you weren't to make them captain. They might hold them back a bit, because my natural instinct is to lead. It's to be at the front, stick my chest out, and just take on whatever's in front of me. And when it worked out that way, I spoke with Jamie Pollock and I explained that they'd asked, was he okay with it? And he said, yeah, 100%, because, like I say, he wasn't necessarily starting. And I was, and I know I'd gained the respect of the players, which is huge, because I've always said, a captain or a manager, it's merely a title. It means nothing. Players don't follow titles; they follow courage and they follow leaders. So it's not about the fact that you've got that title. Once you are the captain, you have to show them qualities and you have to lead from the front. And I like to think I did. Every time I put the shirt on and every time I went onto a pitch, I left nothing behind.
That's totally evident that from the minute you joined us, and you've always been, and you'll continue to be held in the highest regard for because City fans, we're a weird bunch compared to some other fans, aren't we, where once we have somebody who we take to, we don't let him go. And we could see that even with the likes of Sean Goat, when Sean Goat had, signed for us. He wasn't sort of like in particular a crowd favourite at the time. However, with the hard work and stuff like that, people recognise the hard work. And when you come in and joined us, we could just see a born leader and somebody who we needed at that moment in time. Because like you say, we had all the players like the Goat and Dickoff and players like that, but with the quality, like you said, with being a leader, a captain, that role is completely different.
Yeah, it is. And like I say, I was fortunate to fall into something so that it had to take off. It had to turn at some point. And more than me being a turning point, I think I was, it coincided with me being there because. Like I say, Kevin Horlock and, Michael Brown, Jeff Whitley coming through, Nicky Weaver, Jared Beacons, Goter, Dickoff. I just roll them off. That ain't second division players. That's championship players with potential Premier League qualities. So the timing was just perfect. And you need timing. You need a break in life. And, and that came about for me at that time. And you never know how these things are going to work out. I don't know why I had a fallout with the manager at Huddersfield. I thought I was really unfairly treated by him. I made that known to him, and there was no way back. And then the next moment, a door opens at Man City, and immediately, I got there was 28,000 at the first game, and I think the club were about 10th in the league. And it really was that moment where you just think, this is a massive football club. Huddersfield was terrific, but not the history to a degree and the size of the club that Manchester City was at that time when I came into it. And it was like, listen, keep your head down and work really hard because you've got an incredible opportunity here. And I scored on my debut, which was the winner. I scored then the next game away at Oldham. And you just bedded in so well. I think in the third game or maybe the fourth game, I scored away at Luton. So I had 3 in 4 games. And what a way to introduce yourself to the fans.
And we love a cult hero, mate. And what was it like that when you joined us, to see the away support, even at likes of Colchester's and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It really was. And I'm echoing what other players have said. For the loyalty and the fans that turned up on them tough games, and that time when obviously the other team in the city were absolutely flying, to keep that level of loyalty, through them tough times, and to come out the other side. Any fan base in world football deserves what they have now. It's Manchester City, because it's so easy, and you got to understand, and you will do that. The more success you get, the more envy that comes along. It's just a byproduct of success. You can't help it. It will come where, I can remember people saying that Manchester City were everyone's second club. It ain't like that today, because your second club and the clubs you feel sorry for are ones that are struggling. But when you have the success that City have had, it's very, very, it creates a lot of jealousy. There's envy there. So, the fans deserve everything they're getting now, because I was there and everybody was. They can be ignorant to the fact of just how loyal the fan base was at that time. But those who know what it was like. And and now when I'm in Istanbul and I just see the fans, and I just see the the way the club's grown and the loyalty. And I smile, because I just think you deserve this. You deserve this for what you've been through.
Yeah, and I see this with like 19. Stan, what you messing about with there? Although we are going to get like a new kind of fan. Like I saw it today. Which Stan, what you doing there?
Nothing, just watching and listening.
Yeah, so like today watching, I don't know if anyone caught the match today, but it's like when Atletico Madrid scored today, could see City fans with City shirts on cheering that Atletico had scored. I'm like, that wouldn't happen back in the day.
I didn't see that. I'm not sure how that works. But...
It was just like surreal. It was like did you see it, Anne-Marie, today?
Well, I think it was more a fact of, without being rude, I'm not sure that the majority of fans in that stadium necessarily understood the whole thing, because even when there was a tackle going in, they were going wild and cheering. So I kind of don't pay much attention to how the fans reacted today, because it wouldn't happen here.
No, you're absolutely right there. But as I say, what hasn't changed is the hardcore, Andy, where from what we call the dark days. People, and I've said this a few times, people say to me, what's your best ever season, supporting City? And I always cite the old third division as, going home and away, like your Colchesters, your Gillinghams and stuff like that.
Yeah, there is, but when you've had the success and the ongoing success, it's a natural process that the fan base is going to grow, and younger ones are going to come along that haven't experienced that, and it's a new thing to them to perhaps draw a game of football, let alone lose a game of football. So again, I smile at that, because I see that as the growth. I see that as a club on the front foot growing fast. When you see some of the social media stuff, some of the fans and some of the comments, and the new ones, like, you're thinking, wow, you weren't at Mansfield and you weren't at Stockport. But it is, again, it's not a judgment. It's just a acknowledgement of the growth of the football club and how quick it is.
Yeah. There's always one picture, and I think it's an Andy Morrison iconic picture, and I'll show it you now.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah.
No, I remember that game. So Stan Collymore, I think it was in his autobiography, said that you stuck your tongue down his throat.
Yeah, well, I don't think I did that.
I know. I said that. You're more like, there's that gamesmanship, if you like, but you know, Stan was a bit of a weird character, wasn't he? So when you got sent off in that game, what was the media like after that? You know, after him saying that you stuck your tongue down his throat.
It was the referee, you know, and it wasn't. It was just. It went from me sticking my tongue out, and it was a gesture. The gesture was, "I've got you licked." I think we're 67, 70 minutes into the game, and you haven't had a kick yet. You're not a shot on goal, and I've totally dominated you. And that was on the back of like a kind of a nose to nose. And I can't remember, there was some derogatory comment from him around, you know, it would have been around something like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm the man who's got you licked, lad, because you haven't had a kick yet." So the gesture was made, and then the referee pulled his card out. Now, we found out afterwards the referee had forgot he'd booked me already. So he thought it was a simple of simmering down the situation.
Right.
Show me a yellow, you know, put the to bed and move on. But then he looks at his card and he's already booked me. So then he has to pull a red out, which was, you know, it was unfortunate. And we drew the game 0-0. I watched it from the tunnel, and the GOAT had an unbelievable chance in the last minute to win the game. So when you've been sent off, all you want is to not lose the game, because, you know, that's down to you then. And it was unfortunate. I've lacked discipline many times in games, but that wasn't one of them. That was a very calm occasion where with us coming together, we went nose to nose, a comment, and the referee tried to diffuse it with a yellow card, but made a mistake.
I remember it was against, I think it was an FA Cup match as well, away, where you grabbed Carl Court by his, I'm sure it was Carl Court. Yeah. Was it Carl Court by his throat? Was that a New Year's Day one away in a cup? Yeah,
I think it was the FA Cup. I think we drew. And again, you know, it was just much of nothing. You know, and I always seem to have an excuse when I get sent off, but it was a lineswoman who informed the referee at the time that it was violent conduct. And of course, you didn't have replays then. You couldn't look at things, and the referee's got to show me a red card. And then we showed it afterwards, and it wasn't. You know, there was nothing violent there. Just one of those situations. But yeah, there was a few occasions, but not many.
Like Mark Doran there, he's put a comment up, and I totally get this. I don't think City would have reached the playoff final without Andy's leadership qualities. Yeah. I get that, and I think that's universal. Agree. I think that's universal, you know, across every City fan there, because as I said earlier, it was evident when you come in, you know, that your leader qualities. Did you see it that way, where if you wouldn't have joined us, we wouldn't be? I don't think we'd have been in the City now if we wouldn't have got promoted that in '99.
No, but certainly not. You know, not at all, because you're just playing football. You're just playing a part. You're doing what you do, and like I've said many times, there's so many good players there, and eventually Manchester City would have got out of that league. You know, you can't hold a club back the size. Although in saying that, we've seen Sunderland, Sheffield Wednesday teams, you know, that are big clubs that have been stuck down there for a while, like Leeds and Forest, who seem to get stuck in there and not being able to get out. But no, it was, you know, everybody played a huge part in that season. And, you know, sometimes, you know, as the passage of time goes on, you know, we talk about certain players or individuals at that time that played a part, but it was honestly, and I'm not just saying, it was collectively the best squad of players, of men and characters that I'd ever played in. You know, we were just a fantastic bunch of lads who, you know, some had come through the ranks. Edgy had been there all his life, you know, good players. And, you know, and like I say, I was part of that and no more, because, like I say, everybody played their part. If you look at the goals that were scored in the semi-final that led to it, the game, you know, the game-changing games during the season when things were going so against City. I think Stoke away, or was it? I can't remember. Was it York, or when we were down and we turned it round? You know, they're key moments. So I played a part along with many, many people, and can I just say, an exceptional manager and first-team coach. The combination of the two was the best that I ever worked with, and it's easy to say afterwards. But I think sometimes they get lost that you got a club that's sinking, relegation, and now to turn that ship around and then go back-to-back promotions. I don't always think that Joe and Willie get the credit they deserve for what they actually did at that time.
I think within City they did, but you're quite right. It's even now. At the end of last season, it's well documented that all Pep's bonuses he gave pretty much all the way down to the tea lady, because he recognises everybody was instrumental, no matter what they did into the team's success. So yeah, it's like you say, it's to get the recognition. I think that only comes internally with a club, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but it could, it should never be forgotten and be put up there, with the achievements of Pep, Pellegrini, Mancini when they won titles. But I put Joe Royle and Willie, what they did in them back-to-back promotions, up there alongside anything that any other manager's done, because not only was it a club that was on a huge decline. The difference now is it's a progressive club where everything's on the front foot. They had to pick up something that was, 45, 50 players, relegation, apathy, a lack of interest, discontent from the fans. Then to turn that around, the qualities, I've managed myself and I'm managing now, the qualities that are needed to stop that and then reverse the whole thing. Remarkable achievement from the management of that period.
But I think when you signed for us, for me, it was like a beacon of hope, especially when you played that first game. I thought, Jesus, yeah, we have a player on our hands now. And it's not by accident you were made captain of every club you played in. That didn't happen by accident.
No, that's right. It's a story there. When I was driving in on Monday, I obviously scored the winner on the Saturday. And if you remember Mark and Lard from Radio 2.
Yeah.
They're massive City fans. So I'm driving into training on the Monday morning if I wanted to get an idea of the size of the club. And they were on. It was like 8:45. I was on the way up and they were talking about the game at City. And they said, we've sorted everything out now. They said, we've got a doorman in from Huddersfield. And I'm listening on the radio and I had to smile like, we got security. That's what we needed to get out of this league.
Yeah.
And, yeah. As I say, the timing was perfect.
I was going driving in and you heard that. What did you think?
I just smiled. I just thought, 1 minute I'm at Huddersfield, and the next minute I'm getting talked about on Radio 2, albeit as a doorman security guard that's been hired by Man City.
Well, everybody, I'm sure, was pleasantly surprised. What we got.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm sure they were.
I'll tell you one thing though, Andy. Andy, I know you said that you always left everything on the pitch, but you certainly made sure your opponent left something on the pitch, whether it's their arm, their leg, whatever. You left your mark on them, didn't you?
It was all within the rules of the game. I don't think I'd get away with a lot of the antics today. But, when I'm managing, our players are coming in, and I always say, you just got to be real and genuine. And fans see through kissing the badge and, the chanting to the fans. They see through all that. They want to see action. They want to see somebody committed. And if you're committed, and you look at the rapport that Dickie has and the GOAT still, when players like that, and Zabaleta through the years, what's the common denominator? They all gave their all. And it wasn't like I'm giving my all because it's Manchester City. This is what I do. I play football and I need to win. I need to compete. I need to be better than the person I'm up against. And I think fans buy into that and they can't help it. Yeah, and they'll forgive you a little bit if you lack a bit of quality here and there. Not for too long, though, because you won't get away with it forever. Just being that complete competitor. You have to be able to play football as well. But it goes a long way with fans when they see that you're all in and you care. And which is the big thing. You care about getting a result for their club. But also it's for yourself. The club is right. You don't pick and choose. If you're a leader or a captain or you're that way inclined as a footballer, you go about. That's how you play your football, and people buy into that, and they'll forgive you if you lack a little bit.
A question there from Stuart there, and but it's a bit tongue in cheek. From question for Andy: did the celebrations after the playoff final go on longer than Grealish's after the treble win? I think Weaver's still running around Wembley, isn't there?
Yeah, listen, I look, I'm well documented. I didn't pick a drink up from the January in '99. That was my last drink of alcohol. 25 years, and so I wasn't in on the celebrations, and it's a good job as well that I wasn't in on them because, I certainly knew how to celebrate and drink, but I had moved on that. But we had a really good crew of lads, and I on the night had a few hours with them when we got back, and then made my way. But they certainly kept going for maybe 2 or 3 weeks afterwards because it was obviously the last game of the season. And listen, we had Ian Bishop, and and Dickie and Nicky Weaver and Tiato, and these just big characters, and they certainly partied, that's for sure.
So with regards to that, you're right. You even like Kev Orlock and stuff like that. It's. You need them characters. I'll tell you one thing for the playoff final in particular, what really, really pleased me, that was Edge's penalty. The way he buried that penalty, because during the course of that season, you could feel a bit of fan tension towards Edge, which I thought was really unfair because he's a blue, through and through. And again, he's in the mould of somebody who really, really cares. So for him to bang that penalty in, I was made up for him with that.
Yeah, 100%, and we all were, because as you said, he come through the schoolboy ranks all the way through apprentice, and had captained the football club as well, and a proper soldier as well. Edgy back down to no one. So yeah, listen, on the day, I don't even know what you're thinking. There's no fear there. You're just consumed in this kind of moment where you're just watching people step up. You're not thinking, are they under pressure? How are they feeling? Because only on reflection afterwards, because I'll speak to Kev Horlock. Kev will tell you that he couldn't feel his legs. He couldn't see anything on the walk up. He had that many voices, he said, in his head, taking the penalty. And he's got lots of voices going on in his head, Kev. That's for sure.
Not run there.
but he, he said he couldn't feel his legs, and the pressure was huge. And Edgy was the coolest man. Whether he meant to put it in off the crossbar, I'm not sure.
I'm sure he did. I'm sure he'll tell you he did.
But he just ran away, very, very calm. And do you know, if I had been on the pitch after extra time and it come to penalties, I would not put my hand up to take a penalty. Mm-hmm. If the manager had said, listen, Andy, you're taking one, you're number 4, I would have gone, fine, I'll take one. But I would not volunteer to take a penalty ever. One, people there would be better equipped to take it. And 2, whatever said and done about mental strength, the pressure I would have felt around that would have been so intense that I'm sure it would have affected me, taking one. And that's why
that genuinely surprises me, that Andy. That surprised me, like you say, it's a different kind of pressure, but you was obviously a born leader, and you was like the main man. And
yeah, like I say, if I had to, I would have done.
Fair play to you.
But it would have been, if I had to take one, I would have done. But I cared too much, And I'm not saying that nobody else did, but such was the emotional drain and the fear of letting people down would have. I'm not even sure I would have got up to take the penalty. I'm not sure I've been able to walk there because I've seen it many times, and it's just so consuming. At all level, especially at that moment at the end of the season. I think it's more than the cup final. You get a cup final, a set of games that go to a cup, but a playoff final, your whole season, and the stadium's full with your fans. I can't think of anything more pressurized than that moment. I really can't.
I don't know. You seem to find enough energy to catch Weaver, didn't you, at the end?
Yeah, I did. Somebody had to get hold of him, didn't they? Somebody had to stop him. We had a massive pylon, and he struggled. But what a magical moment as well. All I can see is that stupid look on his face, where he's like waving his arm, isn't he? And even with his lip down like that. Even when we do Q&As and we go to the to supporters groups and all that, and he still says, now I have no idea where that came from or why I did it. I hadn't planned it or nothing. He says, and now I look at it, I think, what am I doing? He It's just the most
It's iconic.
ridiculous.
It's iconic, though, isn't it? What was you going to say, Stan?
I was just going to say, I would have thought the pressure would have been on the keeper watching you from 12 yards to get out of the way. I don't think many keepers would have stood there hoping to get a ball in the face. They'd have shot out of the way.
I know. That's probably what I would have done. Just head down and hit as hard as I could. That would have been probably my best play, my best chance. But no, Weaves, he ripped himself, into the history of the football club with the performance. And again, he was. I don't think Weaves would have stayed if we hadn't gone up. I don't think Goat would have stayed. I don't think Dickie would have stayed. Michael Brown, they'd have all gone because the club would have had to go in a different direction financially. If the younger lads would have probably had to come through, and you can imagine how difficult it would have been for younger lads to come into the team in that division with the fans, far from happy about it. So it was a perfect storm, really, and the progress came. As I say, the back-to-back promotions and everything, how it was perfect because you managed to keep hold of that group of players. And then I think Mark Kennedy came in the next year.
He was fantastic.
Spencer came in later in the season, and like I say, back-to-back promotions. It's an incredible achievement.
Ain't no mistake, Andy. We know where all this started, and we're the lucky ones. Us older ones are the lucky ones. We saw you guys start the work, and we're now seeing, Ireland finishing it. But don't worry. We know he was there. We remember you.
Question there from Darren Andy. Who did you get on with best out of the City squad?
I got on with everyone. There was nobody that I didn't get on with. But I still keep in touch now with the Goat, with Dickie. I see Edgy at the games when we do games. Kevin Horlock, I just get some random text off him every now and again. Just absolutely slating me for something that he's seen. And but like I say, we had a really, really tight group, and so many different characters that are needed to bring success. And there was there's 4 or 5 lads I still keep regular contact with now.
Yeah, it's always lovely to see. Has it happened once or twice where the old 99 crew, got together, with in the change room, one of them. Even people for me like Gerard Vikins and stuff like that. He was even during the dark days, he was a Rolls Royce of a player then.
Gerard Vikins was a great defender.
I would say he was one of our most underrated players.
Yeah. No, I agree totally. Yeah, what a talented footballer. And I've often said many times, I've spoke about him highly, when I've been asked of the players that I've played with, what qualities they had, and it always comes right at the top of the list. What a footballer.
He would have definitely gotten Pep's team because he liked to bring the ball out from the back.
That season, it was a perfect foil for me. Like I say, to go and win, go and be aggressive, be on the front foot, just dominate. You don't see centre half switch, but you go back to that period of football and the goalkeeper always kicked. Nobody played out. So the goalkeeper always went long, and if they went to the left, I'd swap with Gerard, and and he always covered around the back of me, always looked after me, and he was an exceptional one-on-one defender. Many times I went on the training ground with him, trying to learn how he dealt with people because he was so clever, and it was. I always used to think he was lucky, but you can't be lucky as many times to intercept things as he did. His timing and his reading of the game was like at Premier League level. And he went on to play many games in the Premier League.
As a centre half, right? And people laugh at me. It might be quite rightly so when I'm going to ask this question. Is there a difference between a centre half playing on the left and a centre half playing on the right in terms of left-footed, right-footed?
I think it gives you balance. I think a range of passing and the way we can open up a team when Laporte plays is slightly different. I think we always go a little bit shorter if it's Diaz or Stones. If the balance goes that way, I always feel as though it's a little bit safer to the fullback or into Rodri. But I think when Laporte, I think we're able to hit diagonal balls, and whether a team play a narrow 4 or a 5, I think that might determine how the manager wants to go, to be able to exploit the longer diagonal ball from Laporte when we can move the opposition around. But it's obviously balance is the obvious. It just gives you that link, and you can play with your full back a lot easier and the range of passing. But it doesn't affect City anyway. But in my day, if you were fortunate enough, to play with a left footer, I played a few games with Tony Vaughan, who had a great left foot. Another huge character, and and
City fan as well. City fan, he was a big blue, Tony.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that, but well.
Come on, do tell us, because he's always been perceived that he's a City fan.
Well, I'm not sure. You'd have to look at some of his history, some of the things he said.
Oh, I'm gonna be looking into that.
You'll have to look into it. I'll say no more.
Oh no, that's a bit of a taster there. So the game has obviously changed massively now, and you said earlier, you won't be able to get away with some of the hard challenges. Not hard challenges. You see too many simulation now from attacking players and stuff like that, where it seems like the tackling element is being, the tough tackling element is being taken away from the game. Now, for me, as old school, I don't know about the others, but I think we miss a little bit of that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The game has changed, and you do need to adapt your game to play, the game from when I started, sort of 86, 87, to when I finished, the game had moved on a lot. You could commit a foul or a challenge that was quite ferocious and dangerous and get a warning, late 80s, early 90s, where you'd say one more of them and you'll get a yellow, and then by the time I finished football, that was a red card for them tackles, when you would just go simply straight through the back of a striker to lay a marker down. And it was never about, you never want to injure a player. You wanted to make an impression and put as much pressure on his first touch as possible. But a lot of things have changed for the better. I think it's much easier to be a striker or a ball playing midfielder now than it is a defender. But yeah, we still miss. I thought it went in a little bit more towards the end of the season before last, and then last season. I thought we could see a bit more competitiveness, and I think the referees took ownership of that, which really pleased me, with just telling players to get up, because at the end of the day, it's a competitive sport, and it can't be, it can't be non-contact. It has to be, that's what it is. It's an arena, the stadium, and you need that energy that comes from that, and it's definitely a better game when there's more physicality allowed within the rules of the game, obviously.
You can't touch a keeper now, Andy. You can either a keeper now and kick.
It's been like that for a long time, though, with keepers, and it is. They are protected. Any sort of contact, they're going with their hands. So, they're not able to protect themselves with their arms. So if I go for a header, my elbows are up, my arms are up. So I'm stopping anybody coming close to me, where a keeper is actually going for the ball. So he has no protection around his face in that, his head area. So they do need to be protected. Is it always right? Probably not. But I do understand it when they get things that other players don't get.
One thing what does frustrate me, though, Andy, is you'll get a challenge, a hard but fair challenge now, where a player, defender, be it a defender, they'll go in hard, get the ball, but they get the man as well, and straight away it's a free kick against him. That element is dying now, isn't it? Where the referees are quick. For me, they quickly show cards for stuff like that. When it's, for me, if they get the ball and the man afterwards, it's a fair.
It's the momentum. Yeah. Listen, you're preaching to the converted here, because I've had this conversation with referee assessors and every season when they've come in, and when we talk about momentum and then follow through, but it's always when it's dangerous. Players don't help the referee's cause. when you stay down or you see a situation where there's been no contact, I think they should be called out for it, and I do think they should be a letter sent to a football club asking a player for his opinion or his thoughts on the tackle, where it's shown that there's no contact and he has actually stayed on the floor, and not necessarily with a sanction of a game or anything, just asking for his, just to let him know that the people are onto it. There's been no contact whatsoever.
I think
We've seen
Mr.
it.
Fernandez could do with that letter.
Yeah, he'd be a busy postman for him.
Yes, he is definitely one that. He is definitely one of the players that just give us an explanation of what you're thinking, because it shows there's no contact. So please explain to us why you've gone to ground, stop the game from its flow, and obviously affected the fans' enjoyment. So probably that's a long way off yet, but I do think last season I did start to see referees taking more control and just telling players to get up. No, you're not having a foul for that. It's not enough, which I think is a good thing for the game.
So if Andy Morrison could bring one rule in and take one rule out of football, what would they be?
Oh, you can't just throw that one on me. I've got to have a bit of a think about it.
For me, if it was me, one thing I'd take away from football is VAR. What's your thoughts on VAR?
Right, I think if it's used correctly, yeah. I know. Listen, we could have a show on VAR, but I think when it's used correctly, I think it's a good thing. I think on the offsides when they're clear, or an obvious mistake, I think a lot of things are down to a referee's opinion. But when it's a clear error, I do think it's, you want the game to be factually correct as it was, and I do think it is. But I understand the frustration. So what I don't get is when they say they're going to change the lines to be bigger or smaller. How does that work when you're talking about hundredth, of a millimeter of being offside? So if they're going to give you 3 inches, then it's going to be, it's as simple as you could talk all night about VAR.
You're right. It's got to be clear and obvious. When somebody's toenail or his fingernail is shown to be offside, for me, it should be a full body width where it gets called, rather than just there's no way where they're giving the advantage to the attacking team. I'm sure every football fan, if a goal goes in against them and it's a full body, you'd be kicking off with it. Whereas a fingernail and stuff like that, what we're seeing time and time again now, it's taken, and it's the time what it comes up. It should be going on the big screen. Lost you there, buddy.
He's gone.
I think we look at the incident where United got the equaliser last year.
Which
was just, that won't happen again. I think the handball, this looks like, sounds like I'm on one with United, but the cup final, the handball with Grealish, I don't get it. I don't think it was the right decision. If you were changing the direction of the ball when it was going to a striker or falling at somebody's feet, then okay, if that process had carried forward, if the next phase of play had happened, there could have been a shot on goal. But if there's nobody there, then how can? Listen, that's just.
It's just a bit of a nonsense, isn't it? When decisions like that are actually given against, because I think
my own thing on it, and probably that's the one area where you'd improve. If a shot, so you've got VAR, if a shot, when it gets to the 18-yard,
just losing you there, pal. If you can hear us.
Yeah, am I back now?
Yeah, go on now. You're back. Sorry, pal.
I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, we lost everyone. But yeah, listen, VAR's ongoing. And like I say, we could discuss it for an hour. But the thing for me is that I don't think you can, once it's in, you have to stay with it. And you've just got to improve it season on season and make sure that, we iron out all the little problems that we saw last year. And I think eventually, I think it'll be a good thing for football.
Yeah, absolutely. So how would you see that? There's a question there from Darren as well. He says it's AC now. I won't say old players. You should have rephrased that down to former players around the ground on match days. Have you always had that? Like the invites and stuff like that? Because as I say, I see you around the ground. More or less every time you're there, and it's good for me. It's good to see the former players. I nearly got the old one then. Even like Lakey, they're never forgotten, are they?
No, look, Lakey came in last year and joined a group of players who did who do the lounges and go into the different areas of the corporate part of match entertainment. But I've been doing that for a good few years now. I'm manager. Last year. I'm from sort of like November onwards, because I was waiting to go back out and there was a lot of complications and problems. I was able to do most of the games, and it is great. It's fantastic. We get looked after. We get spoiled, to be honest. Being able to watch a game and bring some family members, and you get a chance to mix at the stadium, and yeah, it's great.
Quick question there from Mark as well, Andy. Who do you see as City's biggest threat? Next season.
Arsenal, without stating the obvious. They have strengthened, a year's more experience. Be a lot wiser in game situations. Probably won't be as not gung ho, but I thought they were a bit foolhardy. When they were flying and going really well. So a lot of nonsense coming out of training, in their cars and all that, and they just got way ahead of themselves. They'll have learnt from that. They'll know it's not over until the fat lady sings, because I think they're the threat. Liverpool are going to be better. Chelsea are going to be better. Manchester United are going to be better. Everybody's going to be better. But when they become better, they're going to be taking points off each other. And I don't think collectively over a period of time, Manchester City will drop the points that they will. Because they just get on this relentless run where every game they're at the same level and they turn up for the same level. I don't think them teams are ready to do that quite yet. But I do think Arsenal are the most equipped team to challenge City. Yeah,
I think potentially it could be the Premier League's most competitive season ever next season, because even the likes of them up the road, they seem to be taking one step forward and two back now, where it used to be one step forward and 10 back. So I can only see them getting better. But like you say, I think it's about what City do, and I still fancy us to win 4 on the bounce next season.
Yeah, but it's the squad. The strength of the squad's there, and I think that over a season with the strength, I think that City could, they could lose 4 games, but I think the rest lose 7, 8, 9 games. That's the difference, and they've shown. I didn't see it, and I'll be honest, I did not see it before that run came after February. And there was a point where there was a game that coincided with the players doing a huddle. And there was something in around the strength in the change room at that time. And they just went on a run that I didn't see coming. And they just grew and got stronger and stronger. And then, the Arsenal game, the Liverpool game at home, the Bayern game, the Real Madrid game, they just kept growing. And it was like I was doing the commentary on it and just saying, I can't believe the levels that we're seeing game after game. And ultimately, the ironic thing is that the final wasn't like that. You know, the final was nothing like Madrid or Bayern. It was an incredibly nervous performance. I was at the celebrations after the game. I was at the party, and it wasn't a celebration, if you can understand. There was just relief, and it was an emotional evening where people were kind of hugging, and there was a celebration of warmth within. It wasn't a party, because the game, the fans, everything about it was just this. There was just 90 minutes of nervousness, of fear, which made me respect the players even more, because I could see what it meant to them. You know, they'd been to a semi-final before. They won the title, and in them games but that was a final that they needed to win, and you could see the human element involved in it. So my respect went up to them even more, because they managed to find a way to win the game. But it was a magical occasion, that's for sure. I'm sure we all felt that, whether we were there or not. There was just this nervousness throughout everyone and on the pitch.
You could see that after the final whistle, where Pep and he embraced De Bruyne, saying, you know, like we've done it.
Yeah.
It was like, it's like they completed a mission, and they didn't know how to celebrate because they was that focused on it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Didn't know how to celebrate. And the thing is, if we ever get there again, it'll be totally different. I'm telling you, it'll be totally different to that. Because until you've achieved it, you know, when we beat Stoke with the FA Cup and then the first title, until you've done it, it's so difficult. And then I'm not saying it becomes easy, but the fear element is removed, and fear plays a massive part in sport. And, you know, this season, like I say, I don't see anyone stopping them. I really don't.
No, I don't. Yeah, you've got people like what I've heard, and I never really agree with anything what Rio Ferdinand says. But Martin Keown turned around and said, like, Arsenal are winners now. They've not won anything. So until they actually win something, you know, they're not going to have that experience, if you like City have got. Because in my opinion, what drove us on was those Premier League charges. What was thrown at us, that just seemed to tighten even the fans up. You know, because I felt, because we wasn't having the bestest of seasons up until then, I felt a little bit of niggle with some City fans. But once them charges come in, the old club just bonded together.
Yeah, I have to agree. that was a major point in it. It coincided with the talk from Pep that he gave. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. The collective, you know, the huddle before the games was the game after, and from there on they just grew. It's like they just, you know, a monster was triggered at that point. It woke up something within the players that was there. You can't just find it; it's there anyway. But it ignited the players, and then the football club and everything, and you know, the run was just remarkable. And as you just said there, you know, Arsenal going into it, well, what's going to be the difference with 6 to 8 weeks to go? The pressure is going to be so immense again, and City will do their thing, and the run that they showed last year, you know, I think that'll happen again, because they've done it, they've conquered it.
I don't think Arsenal will be anywhere near it this season. I think Arsenal will be. I don't think Arsenal will be anywhere near the title this season. I think last season they were extremely lucky.
Yeah, I get you, but I think, you know, with Havertz coming in, I think he can score goals. I think he was a top player before he went to Chelsea. It didn't work out, and you've got Declan Rice. They've brought another couple of players in, and you know, and with the quality that they've already got there, you know, because of the age and the growth, and as a club that's going forward, you know, I think Liverpool are in a complete transition. Chelsea the same. So I think Arsenal will be the main challengers, but how close that is, who knows?
Yeah, there's a question there from Michael Feeney there, Andy, as well. He said, you had a brilliant story about Paolo One-Chop in your book. How do you get on today? What was that all about?
Brilliant. Yeah, I saw Choppy at a game a few years back, and I saw him like 2 seasons ago. Listen, you can't help but just laugh and smile. We both looked at each other the first time that we've seen each other in probably 15 years and just started laughing, because it's football, you know, it happens. And We're both injured. We're both on edge. We're both down. We're both fed up with being injured, and we're in the same medical room morning, afternoon, and evening. And then something's just said, and before you know it,
Escalates.
It ends up. It escalates and ends up unsavory, and it comes to nothing, and that's the end of it, and it's put to bed. And to be perfectly honest with you, after the event that did occur, things were a lot clearer at that point. And I'm not saying it's the way to deal with it, but it's amazing how many times when you have a little
tear it up.
a little discussion that gets heated, that things are finished. Things are finished, and it moves on very quick. We don't talk about it, but we always smile.
Yeah,
a physical discussion then.
I think you could call it physical. Yeah, I think you could call it physical. That's a fair. I always smile. Steve Howie says that he opened the door and saw the two of us. He just shut the door and walked back out. He didn't want to get involved.
But what do you reckon of the outgoings? What so far this season, Andy? With Mahrez, Gundo, and some of the ones what are rumoured to be going out, like your Laporte, etc. Just lost you there, buddy. Got you.
I don't like to comment on it. I'm saying I get fed up with listening to some of the nonsense that I see on social media, and they're trying to make up stories continually about City and players coming and going. So until it's actually done, I don't really make a comment on it. But I think Gundogan, I think Mahrez, I think that's a natural process. Of times moved on. We've lost so many good players over the years, and we've always replaced them. And when Raheem went, I thought he's almost irreplaceable when you look at his stats, but he isn't. Other people come along, and if they don't come along and score the same goals in the same position, other areas in the team improve, and they find ways of scoring goals in other areas. So nobody is indispensable. There was a time where I could not see anybody ever being what Fernandinho was, because he's my favourite player, City player of all time. I couldn't see him being replaced. We now have the best holding midfielder in world football, one of the best ever for me. He's that good, Rodri. The same with David Silva, and the same with Aguero, Vincent Kompany, Zaba. You just think, how do we replace them? But it is a process and time, and I don't think anybody really leaves City, unless City are quite happy for them to move on. Whether the player wants to get out, or whether the club are happy to oblige and let it happen. It doesn't happen unless City make that decision. So the other players that have been mentioned, until they go, who knows? I don't know how a player's thinking, because one minute you're reading something, and then the next minute they're fine, and then they're off to Bayern, and then they're not. And until it's actually done, I don't think there's any point commenting on it.
No, I would be gutted if Kyle Walker did depart. I will be even today. Watch the match, and he was just magnificent. At 33, and he's still got that burst of pace.
Yeah, he's got a burst of pace, and he's also he's also aggressive. He's also a competitor, and he also loves the challenge. He wants somebody to try and run him. He wants somebody to get physical with him. And he's a warrior, as well as all the other qualities he has. So he's so important to what City do over a season. I don't think any player at Manchester City is important that they're indispensable for one game. But I think over a season, I think so many players play major parts. We've seen Bernardo Silva come into form, Foden come into form, Gundogan come into form, Mahrez. I don't know how the manager does it, but they seem to just, when one just begins to drop off a little bit, the other one comes in. And I don't think that'll be by design. I just think that's just the way the club work. And but the amount of times that Gundogan wasn't in the team, and Mahrez or Bernardo Silva were, Jack Grealish were performing miracles, and then Bernardo might come out of the team, and all of a sudden Gundogan comes in and starts scoring goals. And testament again, I think, to the coaches and the manager, how they managed to get that continually over like a 55-game season to be ready for every game with the same intensity has to come from the manager.
Yeah, for me, if Haaland wasn't in our team last season, I would have had to have put Nathan Ake as our player of the season. I thought Nathan Ake, when he come into the team, you know, lost you there, pal. Yeah, I just thought when Nathan Ake came into the team, he was just superb last season.
Yeah, delighted to see he's signed a contract extension.
Yeah.
Got you back there now, Pat. Yeah, got you back. Just saying, but for me, Nathan Ake last season was just absolutely immense.
I got kicked out. And Nathan Ake, Akanji, John Stones, Jack Grealish, Haaland. How do you pick a player of the season? How do you? Because De Bruyne, I mean, I didn't even mention Rodri. We're talking about 8 or 9 players that could be player of the season. And that's why the success is there, because it's not 1 or 2. It's a collective. You know, if you've got 7, 8, 9 players that are at the top of their game every time you put 11 onto a pitch, you're going to be really, really hard to beat. And Nathan Ake, I think I caught the end of what you said in relation to player of the season. But Akanji was incredible. John Stones got plaudits at the end and during the season. He was remarkable in the way his game adapted. When Diaz came back in, he was phenomenal for the last 4 or 5 months. Rodri all season. Jack Grealish got stronger and stronger. Haaland, De Bruyne. Do you know what? How do you pick a player out of that? You can't.
Even Edison, right at the end, what we saw in the Champions League final, the saves what he made, and he's not always known for being a shot stopper, is he, Edison, as well? But he proved his worth right at the end of the season.
Yeah, they all did. They all did. They all came at times, and I think if you were going for player of the season last year, I mean, I didn't even mention Gundogan, did I? Look at the goals the man scored in the final months of the season, the key goals. I think for me, I'd love to be inside the walls and to see how the manager keeps the players just teetering on the edge all the time, because it is a thin line, between driving them and then falling out with somebody. It's you keep driving players and you keep pushing them and you keep demanding, and you've got to keep it boiling all the time at that level so that they don't drop off, they don't drop their standards. And that must be hard to do over a season without falling out with people. Like I say, I've played and I've managed, and I know how difficult it is to be relentless in your pursuit of excellence like the manager is.
There don't appear to be any egos, like you say. That is one. And Pep gets accused of, whether he was at Barcelona, Bayern Munich, or City, it's easy for him because he's got bucket loads of money. You've got to prove your worth. You've got to be a top manager to keep all them egos, or maybe not egos, happy, like you say, with giving them enough game time, and dipping players in like he's done with Rico and stuff like that. Although he still likes putting players through, don't he, as well?
No, definitely. And like I say, he's every club he's been at, and you see players that, I'm not saying they're necessarily fallen out with him, but, have not agreed or whatever, and there's been a little bit of a clash. 4 or 5 years down the line, you see them talking and they just talk about Pep as in, he was right. Everything he said to us was right at the time. There was a moment this season where he spoke about, I think he was being interviewed and he was asking, can we win the title? And he said, I'm not interested in the title. I just want my team to be the best they can be. I want every player to be the best that they can be. I want every game to be their last game. I want every training session. I want every passing drill. I want every pass to be perfect. That's different levels. That's the very, very elite that can continually have that drive. And the players came back and stood up to it, and they only produced what was already in them. His job and the manager's job is to get it out, to reveal those qualities that they have. Because you can't make a player into something that's not already there. You know, you can educate, you can encourage, but the player has to have it in there. And he has the ability to game after game after game. You know, I warmed to, well, not that I wasn't warmed to him, but I saw the leadership qualities of Diaz in the last 6 weeks of the season, where I was watching in the pressure games, and I was just like, oh my God, this lad is at a different level when it comes to leadership and his intensity in his eyes and everything about him. You know, because you can get away with it. You can pretend that. You can do rah, rah, rah and bang your chest, but you eventually get found out. And he was relentless in his pursuit as well. So, you know, could be a captain there for the next 10 years in Ruben Diaz.
Yeah,
I think
is only.
I think Diaz will be captain shortly.
It's down to the play, and I like that what Pep does as well. You know, for any incoming captains and stuff like that, he doesn't actually choose one. He always gets the players to name who they want as a captain. So that just shows the togetherness what's in the squad.
Yeah, it's very humble. I think if there's 2-3 players there that want to be the captain and feel that they should be the captain, and they don't get picked, you might be looking at one of your teammates and saying, "Did you pick me or to pick him?" You know, it's how they do it, and it's successful. But you know, for me, it's always been the manager's decision. You know, but who am I to question how Pep chooses his captain?
So what you like as a manager? What qualities do you bring to your team?
Well, you have to ask them. The players that have played for me. I think I'm straight. I think I'm honest. I think ultimately, I want players to be the best version of themselves. You know, and I think collectively, if you're getting a player to be the best version of himself, not just as a footballer, but as a human being and a man, you've got a real chance. And also being real. You know, I've been fortunate to play for so many good managers, and I played for a lot of managers that I learned how not to manage. You know, where it's not real. We know when somebody's genuine, and I'd like to think the players that have played for me know that I care, and I'm real. You know, and it's not lip service, and I think that goes a long, long way.
That's actually quite spooky what you've just said there. I've worked for managers in the past, not good managers, but I'm glad I've worked for them because I've learned how not to manage, and I think that that is so important.
Yeah, it is. You know, you're learning all the time. You know, and I'm not saying every manager that I've not agreed with is wrong. I'm just saying it's how I saw the game and how it affected me. And nobody cares what you know, until they know you care. That's never ever leaves me. You know, and you want players to go to the well for you, and every time they go into a pitch, they'll do it for themselves first and foremost. But you'd like to think that they, that when you're hurting or when you lose a game and they see in you how much it affects you, that they want to do well for you. And I think that's a quality that all the top managers I've played for, I wanted to do well for them because I believed in them and I knew what they were saying was genuine, and I knew how much they cared about, not just as a footballer, because it's, you're going to play, you're going to win games of football. It's got to be more than that, and I really do believe that Pep is not just a manager, he's a mentor, he's a father, he's probably a therapist in many ways, he's a leader. You need all them qualities to create what they've created and what they have at the club. You see it. Like I say, I'm not privy to what goes on, but I just see the way the players speak, and you get little clips and you hear little things, and they're so strong, the group, and they're so together. I think Kovacic is not going to come on and say, well, I'm not sure about this group. They don't really get on that well, and it's not how I thought it would be. I know they're going to say the right things, but the fact that he's echoing things that have been said before about the strength of the group, how they all get on, the banter and the crack, which is the best teams have all that. And I think City have it in abundance.
Well, listen, mate, I'm going to let you go because I appreciate you coming on, especially for your birthday. hope you've had a really, really good day. And it's been, listen, I could have you on all night, mate. But grateful that you've given us an hour of your time, and thank you very much, pal.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on, and hopefully catch up with you soon at one of the games.
Absolutely. Thanks very much,
Andy.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks everybody.
Bye-bye.
The guys and Andy. Speak soon. See you later. Bye bye now.
Take care.